15. Most shocking family secrets, hidden by gospel legends. What if the biggest names in gospel music, the voices that shook churches and inspired generations, were hiding secrets that could change how we see them forever? From forbidden romances and family scandals to secret battles with fame and faith. These stories have remained buried for decades. Until now. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the untold truths behind gospel's most iconic legends. But here's the real question. Will you still hear their songs the same way? Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's uncover the side of gospel history no one talks about. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Louise Franklin, born on March 25, 1942 in Memphis, Tennessee, grew up in a world filled with both faith and complexity. Her father, Reverend Clarence L. Franklin, was a legendary Baptist preacher known for his powerful sermons, while her mother, Barbara Siggers Franklin, was a gifted gospel singer and pianist. Yet behind the church's stained glass windows, life wasn't always picture perfect. Her parents' marriage fell apart, and when Aretha was just 10 years old, her mother passed away from a heart attack. The loss left a deep mark on her childhood. The family eventually settled in Detroit, where New Bethel Baptist Church became not only her father's ministry headquarters, but also a hub for gospel legends, jazz artists, and civil rights leaders. Surrounded by music, Aretha taught herself to play piano by ear, showing an instinctive grasp of harmony and rhythm that amazed everyone around her. By her early teens, her voice was already carrying the kind of emotion that would one day move millions. But behind the early promise was a private story few knew at the time. Aretha became a mother at just 12 years old, giving birth to her first son, Clarence, in 1955. At 15, she had a second son, Edward. She rarely spoke publicly about these early pregnancies, choosing to protect her personal life, while her grandmother and sisters helped raise the children as Aretha began chasing her musical dreams. At 18, Aretha moved to New York City and signed with Columbia Records. The label struggled to find the right sound for her, releasing jazz and pop standards that never fully captured her gospel roots. Everything changed in 1966 when she signed with Atlantic Records. Their producer, Jerry Wexler, encouraged her to embrace the soulful, church-inspired style that became her signature. Hits like Respect and I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You turned her into an international superstar almost overnight. Her personal life, however, remained turbulent. She married Ted White in 1961, but the relationship was troubled and ended in divorce in 1969. In 1978, she married actor Glynn Turman, though that marriage also ended after a few years. Adding to the heartbreak, her father was shot in 1979 and remained in a coma until his death in 1984. Through it all, Aretha kept singing at presidential inaugurations, on world stages, and in recording studios. She won 18 Grammy Awards, sold millions of records, and in 1987 became the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her voice carried power because it was forged in real-life trials. The Queen of Soul didn't just sing songs, she lived them, turning private pain into music that still inspires generations. Mahalia Jackson. Mahalia Jackson, born on October 26, 1911, in New Orleans, Louisiana, rose from humble beginnings to become the queen of gospel. Growing up in the Black Pearl neighborhood, Mahalia faced poverty and hardship early on. Her mother died when she was just 5 years old, and she was raised by her aunt Mahalia Duke Paul in a small house filled with extended family. Life wasn't easy. She often spoke about singing to comfort herself when times felt unbearable. From the start, music was her refuge. She joined the Mount Moriah Baptist Church choir as a child, where her powerful contralto voice quickly stood out. By her teenage years, she was singing at local churches and events, blending spirituals with the emotional depth of blues, though she always kept her music sacred. Mahalia refused to sing secular songs despite offers from record labels and nightclubs. For her, gospel music was a calling, not just a career. But even legends carry secrets. For years, whispers spread about her close friendship with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She sang at civil rights rallies, including the 1963 March on Washington, where King delivered his historic "I Have a Dream" speech. Some speculated their relationship might have gone beyond friendship, pointing to long private conversations and letters exchanged between the two. Others insisted it was simply a deep spiritual and political alliance. Beyond her rumored personal life, Mahalia achieved unprecedented success for a gospel singer. Her recording of "Move On Up a Little Higher" in 1947 sold over 8 million copies, turning her into an international sensation. She performed for presidents at Carnegie Hall and even for Queen Elizabeth II. Despite the fame, Mahalia remained grounded, refusing to compromise her faith-driven message for commercial gain. Her personal struggles, however, were real. Mahalia battled health problems for much of her life, including severe arthritis and exhaustion from constant touring. She was married twice, but neither marriage lasted, largely because her career demanded so much of her time and energy. Still, she pushed forward, becoming a symbol of hope during the civil rights era. Her voice rang out at rallies, funerals, and historic gatherings, offering strength to a movement fighting for justice. When Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, Mahalia sang "Precious Lord, Take My Hand" at his funeral, her grief pouring through every note. By the time of her death in 1972, Mahalia Jackson had sold millions of records, won numerous awards, and inspired generations of artists. Yet behind the spotlight stood a woman who carried both triumph and heartbreak, a legend whose songs still echo with faith, courage, and the complexity of a life fully lived. Rosetta Tharpe. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, born on March 20, 1915 in Cotton Plant, Arkansas, was decades ahead of her time. Often called the godmother of rock and roll, she blended spiritual fervor with guitar-driven rhythms in a way no one had heard before. Raised in the Church of God in Christ, Rosetta began performing at age 4, traveling with her mother, Katie Bell Newbin, a traveling preacher and singer. From the beginning, faith and music were inseparable for her, and by the 1930s, she was already known for electrifying gospel performances that drew both the devout and the curious. In 1938, Rosetta moved to New York City and began recording with Decca Records. Her song, "This Train," became a hit, and audiences were stunned by her guitar mastery, lightning-fast, picking bold improvisation, and a charisma that filled every room she entered. At a time when women, especially black women, were expected to stand in the background, Sister Rosetta stood front and center, guitar slung across her shoulder, transforming gospel into something bold, soulful, and deeply modern. Yet behind the gospel chords and groundbreaking performances, whispers about her private life began to surface. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Rosetta often traveled and performed with singer Marie Knight. Their on-stage chemistry was undeniable, two powerful women harmonizing with energy and joy. Off-stage, they were nearly inseparable, sharing hotel rooms and spending countless hours together. Some claimed they were more than friends, while others dismissed it as gossip born from a conservative era unwilling to accept female independence in any form. What's certain is that Rosetta faced enormous pressure from church leaders who disapproved of her collaborations with secular musicians and the rumors about her personal life. She married 3 times, though some believed these relationships were attempts to quiet speculation rather than true love stories. Despite the criticism, she refused to hide her talent or her personality, shattering expectations of how a gospel artist should act, sound, and live. By the 1960s, Rosetta's influence stretched far beyond gospel. Rock pioneers like Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Little Richard cited her as a major inspiration. Her 1964 European tour, where she performed "Didn't It Rain" on a rainy railway platform in England, became legendary, introducing her music to a whole new generation. Rosetta passed away in 1973 after suffering a stroke, but her legacy only grew. Decades later, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, finally receiving recognition for shaping the very foundations of rock music. Sister Rosetta Tharpe wasn't just ahead of her time, She changed it, leaving behind a legacy as bold, complex, and unforgettable as her guitar solos. James Cleveland. James Cleveland, born on December 5, 1931 in Chicago, Illinois, became known as the King of Gospel Music. His deep, raspy voice and groundbreaking arrangements transformed the gospel sound, merging traditional spirituals with contemporary rhythms to create something powerful and unforgettable. Raised in a humble South Side neighborhood, Cleveland grew up singing in church choirs where his gift for music emerged early. By the time he was in his teens, he was already performing with the famed gospel airs and learning piano skills that would later shape his distinctive style. In the 1950s, Cleveland joined the legendary Caravans, one of gospel's most prominent groups. His compositions, such as The Love of God and Peace, Be Still, became instant classics, filling churches and concert halls with soaring harmonies and heartfelt emotion. By the 1960s, he had founded the Southern California Community Choir and later the Gospel Music Workshop of America, mentoring countless young singers who went on to become gospel stars themselves. Yet behind the music that stirred millions, Cleveland carried a private life wrapped in mystery and speculation. Rumors circulated about his personal relationships, particularly his close bonds with certain young male singers he mentored. Some choir members recalled situations that fueled gossip, though no confirmed evidence ever emerged to prove wrongdoing. How should we separate a person's legacy from the private questions we may never fully answer? Despite the whispers, Cleveland remained focused on his music. He recorded over 50 albums, many of them live performances filled with spontaneous energy that made audiences feel as though they were in the room with him. His concerts often lasted for hours, blending preaching with singing, until the lines between sermon and song disappeared. Financial success followed, but so did health struggles. By the late 1980s, Cleveland's health began to decline due to complications from AIDS, a topic rarely discussed openly in the conservative gospel world of that era. When he passed away on February 9, 1991, at the age of 59, the gospel community was shaken not only by the loss of a musical giant, but also by the circumstances surrounding his illness. Yet his legacy endures. The Gospel Music Workshop of America, which he founded in 1967, remains one of the largest international gospel conventions, continuing his mission to train and inspire future generations. Countless artists from Kirk Franklin to Yolanda Adams cite Cleveland as a major influence, crediting him with shaping modern gospel music. James Cleveland's life was full of triumphs, complexities, and questions that remain unanswered. But his contribution to music is undeniable. He took gospel out of small churches and onto global stages, forever changing its soundscope and reach. Clara Ward. Clara Ward, born on April 21, 1924 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, rose to fame as one of gospel music's most dynamic and charismatic figures. Known for her powerful voice, commanding stage presence, and ability to blend church tradition with showmanship, she helped bring gospel music from small sanctuaries to grand concert halls around the world. Raised in a deeply religious household, Clara was the daughter of Gertrude Ward, who managed the famous Ward Singers. Gertrude was a visionary, determined to create opportunities for her daughter and other young women in gospel music. Under her mother's guidance, Clara developed a reputation not just as a singer, but as a trailblazer who transformed gospel into a professional, financially viable career. By the 1940s and 1950s, the Ward Singers were among the most popular gospel groups in America. Their high-energy performances, glamorous attire, and intricate harmonies drew massive crowds. Clara's voice, rich, versatile, and full of emotion, made songs like "Surely God is Able" and "How I Got Over" unforgettable classics. Her music inspired audiences while paving the way for future stars like Aretha Franklin and Shirley Caesar. But behind the applause and the bright lights, Clara Ward's life carried its share of rumors and controversy. One of the most persistent involved her alleged romantic relationship with Reverend C.L. Franklin, the charismatic Detroit pastor and father of Aretha Franklin. Clara frequently visited his New Bethel Baptist Church to perform and gossip about late-night meetings, and whispered conversations spread quickly through church circles. Neither Clara nor Reverend Franklin ever confirmed the rumors, leaving the truth forever cloaked in speculation. Aside from the gossip, Clara was known for breaking barriers in gospel performance style. She wasn't afraid to bring theatrical elements into her shows, dramatic entrances, colorful wardrobes, even choreography at a time when some church leaders believed gospel music should remain solemn and conservative. Critics accused her of turning sacred music into entertainment, but fans loved the energy and emotion she brought to every stage. Clara never married, though she was often linked romantically to prominent men, and she lived a life that balanced fame with personal independence. In the 1960s, she expanded into acting and appeared in films like A Time to Sing alongside Hank Williams Jr. Despite health challenges, including several strokes, she continued performing into the early 1970s. When Clara Ward passed away on January 16, 1973, at the age of 48, the gospel world mourned the loss of a woman who had reshaped its sound and style. Her influence lives on in every gospel singer who dares to combine faith artistry and individuality on stage. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke, born on January 22, 1931 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, began life as the son of a Baptist minister. His family moved to Chicago when he was a child, and it was there that young Sam's love for music took root. Singing in church choirs and gospel groups, he displayed a voice that was smooth yet powerful, tender, yet commanding, a voice destined to travel far beyond the walls of the sanctuary. By his teenage years, Sam had joined the Highway QCs, a popular gospel group, where he refined his tenor voice and natural stage presence. In 1950, at just 19, he became the lead singer of the Soul Stirrers, one of the most famous gospel quartets in America. With hits like Peace in the Valley and Nearer to Thee, Sam's heartfelt delivery made him a rising star in the gospel world. Fans packed churches to hear him sing, and his charisma was unmatched. But behind the sacred music and polished image, Sam Cooke carried ambitions that would soon spark both success and controversy. In 1956, while still with the Soul Stirrers, he secretly began recording secular songs under the name Dale Cook to avoid backlash from gospel fans. When You Send Me hit the charts in 1957, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. His double life was exposed. Sam was leaving gospel for pop music. Many in the church community felt hurt, even angry. Some accused him of abandoning faith for fame, while others understood he was seeking creative freedom in a segregated music industry that offered limited opportunities to black artists. Sam himself insisted he never left gospel behind. He simply wanted to reach wider audiences. Over the next few years, Sam Cooke became one of the first black artists to own his publishing rights and start his own record label, Sayar Records. He wrote and recorded timeless songs like Chain Gang Cupid and Twistin' the Night Away. But perhaps his most iconic work was A Change Is Gonna Come, released in 1964, a powerful anthem inspired by the civil rights movement and his own experiences with racism. Tragically, Sam's life ended suddenly on December 11, 1964, when he was shot at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles under circumstances that remain controversial to this day. He was only 33 years old, yet his influence was monumental. Artists from Aretha Franklin to Otis Redding cited him as inspiration, and his blend of gospel passion with secular music paved the way for soul music itself. Sam Cooke's legacy lives in every note of modern R&B, soul, and pop, a reminder of how one man bridged the sacred and the secular to change music forever. Paul Jones. Reverend Paul Jones was born in the early 1950s in Houston, Texas, and grew up immersed in faith and music. From a young age, he displayed a powerful singing voice and a natural gift for preaching. By the late 1980s, Jones had become a rising gospel star, celebrated for his passionate delivery and heartfelt lyrics that resonated deeply with church congregations across the South. His most famous song, I Won't Complain, became a gospel standard covered by countless artists and sung in churches nationwide. Jones was more than a singer. He was a minister who inspired people through both word and song. He pastored churches, organized youth programs, and dedicated his life to spreading messages of hope and perseverance. On stage, his performances were electric, filled with energy that made audiences believe every word he sang. Off stage, he was known as approachable and kind, someone who encouraged young people to pursue both education and faith. But on November 19, 1990, tragedy struck. Paul Jones was found shot to death in his home in Houston. He was only 30 years old. The news stunned the gospel community. A rising star gone so suddenly and violently, it seemed unimaginable. Police reports revealed he had been shot multiple times, and while robbery was initially suspected, there were no signs of forced entry or theft. Investigators explored multiple leads, including rumors about personal relationships and financial disputes, but the case quickly grew cold. Some speculated that jealousy or betrayal might have played a role, while others believed it was a random act of violence. His congregation and fans were left grieving and searching for answers that never fully came. Jones's funeral drew hundreds of mourners, including pastors, gospel singers, and community leaders who remembered him not only for his music, but for his dedication to ministry. His most beloved song, I Won't Complain, took on new meaning after his death, its lyrics about enduring hardship and trusting God echoing through churches for years to come. In the decades since his passing, Paul Jones's influence has continued to grow. Young gospel artists often cite him as inspiration, noting how his brief career left a lasting mark on the genre. Memorial concerts and tributes have been held in his honor, keeping his legacy alive even as questions about his death remain unanswered. Reverend Paul Jones's life was one of faith music and mystery, a story that reminds us how fragile even the brightest lights can be. His voice may have been silenced too soon, but his message of hope and perseverance continues to comfort and inspire generations. James Moore. Reverend James Moore, born on February 1, 1961 in Detroit, Michigan, grew up surrounded by church music and quickly became known for his remarkable vocal power. From a young age, he could command a room with his voice rich, soulful, and filled with raw emotion. By the time he reached adulthood, he had become one of gospel music's most dynamic performers, blending traditional hymns with modern arrangements that moved both congregations and concert audiences alike. Moore's breakthrough came in the 1980s, when he began recording albums that climbed the gospel charts. Songs like Joy and He Was There All the Time revealed not only his vocal range, but also his deep connection to the music's spiritual roots. He performed at churches, music festivals, and conventions across the country, quickly earning a reputation as one of gospel's most electrifying voices. But behind the soaring notes and thunderous applause, Reverend James Moore faced personal struggles that few knew about at the time. Reports surfaced over the years about health issues and the intense pressure of constant touring. As his fame grew, so did the demands on his time, leading to exhaustion and periods of isolation that worried those close to him. Some hinted at financial troubles as well, the kind that often follow artists who spend more time on the road than at home managing business affairs. By the 1990s, Moore was diagnosed with diabetes, a disease that began to affect his health in serious ways. Despite doctors' warnings, he refused to slow down, continuing to perform while enduring dialysis treatments and declining strength. Concert-goers often had no idea he was performing while sick because his voice remained as commanding as ever, masking the toll illness was taking on his body. In 1997, Moore recorded what would become one of his most celebrated albums, Family and Friends Volume 1. The live recording captured him at his peak, delivering powerhouse vocals, even as his health continued to deteriorate. The album won stellar awards and further cemented his place among gospel's greats. Sadly, Reverend James Moore passed away on June 7, 2000, at just 38 years old. His death left the gospel world stunned, grieving the loss of a man whose music had brought so much hope and inspiration to others, even while he carried his own burdens. His recordings remain staples in churches and on gospel radio stations across the country. Younger artists often cite him as an influence, pointing to his ability to combine vocal excellence with deep emotional authenticity. Reverend James Moore's life reminds us that behind every triumphant song is often a story of endurance, faith, and quiet struggle. Kirk Franklin. Kirk Dwayne Franklin, born on January 26, 1970, in Fort Worth, Texas, grew up facing challenges that could have easily silenced his dreams. Abandoned by his parents at a young age, he was raised by his Aunt Gertrude, who bought and resold aluminum cans to pay for his piano lessons. From the start, music became his escape, his safe space, and the language through which he would one day speak to millions. By age 11, Franklin was already leading the adult choir at his local church, showing a remarkable gift for directing voices and arranging harmonies. He studied classical music as a child, but was drawn to the rhythms of gospel and the storytelling power of hip-hop and R&B. That unique blend would later define his signature sound, a mix of choir-driven worship and modern urban beats that revolutionized gospel music in the 1990s. In 1992, Franklin formed The Family, a 17-voice choir that recorded his debut album, Kirk Franklin and the Family. Released in 1993, it became the first gospel album to sell over 1 million copies. Songs like Why We Sing and Silver and Gold crossed boundaries, playing on both gospel stations and mainstream radio. Suddenly, gospel music was reaching new audiences in ways few thought possible. But behind the success, Kirk Franklin carried a personal battle he later revealed publicly. In 2005, he admitted to a long, painful addiction to pornography, an issue rarely discussed openly in the gospel world. Franklin explained how the addiction began in childhood and became a secret struggle even as his career soared. His decision to speak out shocked many, but also encouraged others dealing with similar challenges to seek help. Franklin's honesty didn't end his career. Instead, it deepened his connection with fans who admired his transparency. He continued releasing chart-topping albums like God's Property, 1997, The Rebirth of Kirk Franklin, 2002, and Hello Fear, 2011, each blending gospel's spiritual depth with contemporary sounds. His 1998 hit Stomp, featuring Salt from Salt and Peppa, became a cultural phenomenon, proving gospel could be joyful, danceable, and still deeply meaningful. Over the years, Franklin has won 19 Grammy Awards, 22 Stellar Awards, and 23 Dove Awards, making him one of the most decorated gospel artists in history. He has also hosted the BET show Sunday Best, mentoring new gospel talent, and collaborated with artists across genres, from gospel greats like Yolanda Adams to mainstream stars like Kanye West on Ultralight Beam. Through it all, Kirk Franklin's life reflects both triumph and transparency. He broke musical barriers, confronted personal demons openly, and reshaped what gospel music could sound like and who it could reach. His story proves that faith, honesty, and innovation can exist together even in the face of controversy and change. Shirley Caesar. Shirley Ann Caesar, born on October 13, 1938, in Durham, North Carolina, became known as the First Lady of Gospel for a reason. With a career spanning more than 6 decades, she combined powerhouse vocals with heartfelt ministry, transforming gospel music while staying rooted in faith. Raised as the 10th of 13 children, Shirley grew up in a modest household where music and church were at the center of daily life. Her father, James Caesar, was a local gospel singer who passed away when Shirley was just 7 years old, leaving her mother to raise the children alone. Despite financial struggles, music became the family's lifeline, and young Shirley's extraordinary voice quickly set her apart. By the time she was a teenager, Shirley was performing around North Carolina, drawing attention for her ability to blend fiery energy with spiritual sincerity. In 1951, at only 12 years old, she began singing with the legendary Caravans, one of gospel's most influential groups. Songs like Sweeping Through the City and No Coward Soldier introduced audiences to her commanding stage presence and unmistakable vocal power. But fame brought its own set of challenges. Over the years, whispers spread about Shirley's financial success, with some critics claiming she lived far more lavishly than her humble public image suggested. Reports surfaced of expensive homes, luxury cars, and wardrobe costs that shocked fans who associated gospel artists with modesty and sacrifice. Lawsuits filed by former band members over unpaid wages only fueled the controversy, painting a complicated picture of an artist celebrated for generosity, yet accused of financial mismanagement. Shirley rarely addressed these rumors directly, choosing instead to focus on her ministry and music. Her career as a solo artist soared in the 1970s and 1980s with hits like Jesus I Love Calling Your Name and Hold My Mule songs that mixed storytelling, preaching, and soaring vocals in ways that electrified audiences. Known for her sermonettes, Shirley often broke into spoken word sections mid-song, delivering messages of faith, perseverance, and social justice that resonated deeply with listeners. Beyond music, Shirley Caesar built a reputation as a humanitarian and pastor. She founded outreach ministries in North Carolina, feeding the hungry, supporting the elderly, and offering scholarships to underprivileged youth. Her commitment to service earned her multiple honors, including 12 Grammy Awards, 18 Dove Awards, and induction into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Now in her 80s, Shirley continues performing, preaching, and recording, proving that her passion for gospel music and ministry has never wavered. Her life, filled with triumphs, controversies, and unwavering faith, shows that even legends carry human complexities. Yet through it all, Shirley Caesar remains a towering figure in gospel music, a voice of inspiration, resilience, and unshakable devotion. Timothy Wright. Reverend Timothy Wright, born on June 17, 1947 in Brooklyn, New York, became widely known as the godfather of gospel. A pastor, composer, and choir director, Wright combined powerful preaching with soul-stirring music that made him a beloved figure in gospel circles across America. From an early age, he was drawn to both ministry and music, learning piano as a child and playing for church choirs by his teenage years. His blend of traditional gospel with contemporary flair made his songs accessible to both young and old audiences. In 1994, Wright released Come Thou Almighty King, which earned him national attention and multiple Stellar Award nominations. Later albums like Jesus, 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 2007, showcased his signature style, rousing choirs, heartfelt solos, and lyrics that emphasized faith in times of trial. He pastored the Grace Tabernacle Christian Center in Brooklyn while touring nationally, balancing life as both a spiritual leader and a celebrated musician. Yet whispers of controversy occasionally surrounded his personal life. Some claimed Reverend Wright faced marital struggles and allegations of infidelity, though he rarely addressed such rumors publicly. Supporters insisted he was a man devoted to his family and ministry, while critics speculated about the pressures of fame and constant travel. Tragedy struck on July 4, 2008, when Reverend Wright's car was hit head-on by a drunk driver in Pennsylvania. His wife Betty and their grandson were killed instantly, while Wright suffered critical injuries. For months, the gospel community prayed as he fought for his life in the hospital. Despite surgeries and intensive care, he passed away on April 24, 2009, at the age of 61. His death shocked fans worldwide, especially since his final album, Jesus, 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 had become an anthem of hope just months earlier. Friends and fellow artists remembered him not only for his booming voice and electrifying choirs, but also for his compassion and unwavering faith. Reverend Timothy Wright left behind a legacy of resilience, music, and ministry. His songs continue to echo through churches today, reminding listeners of the man who sang about triumph even while walking through tragedy himself. Albertina Walker. Albertina Walker, born on August 29, 1929 in Chicago, Illinois, earned the title Queen of Gospel through decades of dedication to music and ministry. Growing up in the Bronzeville neighborhood, she began singing in church choirs as a child and was mentored by gospel legends like Mahalia Jackson. By the 1950s, Albertina had founded the Caravans, a gospel group that launched the careers of stars, such as Shirley Caesar, Inez Andrews, and Dorothy Norwood. Known for her rich contralto voice and charismatic leadership, Albertina brought gospel music into mainstream visibility. The Caravans recorded hits like Mary Don't You Weep and Lord Keep Me Day by Day, songs that became staples in churches across the nation. But behind-the-scenes stories emerged about fierce rivalries within the group. Some former members claimed Albertina controlled contracts tightly and decided who sang lead parts, creating tensions that sometimes spilled beyond rehearsals. Was Albertina a tough leader, or simply a woman determined to protect her group's success in a male-dominated industry? Critics accused her of using church connections to secure record deals and performance opportunities, while admirers praised her as a shrewd businesswoman who gave female gospel singers a platform in an era when few existed. Albertina herself insisted she was simply focused on excellence and ministry, refusing to let personal conflicts overshadow the music's message. Beyond the stage, Albertina Walker was deeply involved in community service. She supported charities, scholarship programs, and church outreach efforts throughout Chicago, earning respect not just as a performer, but as a humanitarian. Over her career, she received numerous honors, including a Grammy Award for Songs of the Church and induction into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Albertina continued singing well into her 70s, her voice retaining its power until her passing on October 8, 2010. Fans remember her not only as a gospel pioneer, but as a woman who blended artistry, faith, and determination to leave an enduring mark on music history. Dottie Peoples. Dottie Peoples, born on August 12, 1950 in Dayton, Ohio, became known as the Songbird of the South for her soaring voice and spirited performances. Growing up in a family devoted to faith and music, she began singing in church choirs before most children learned to read. Her natural gift for delivering gospel songs with power and conviction quickly set her apart from her peers. In the 1970s, Dottie toured with Dorothy Norwood and later joined forces with the Reverend James Cleveland's Gospel Music Workshop of America. These experiences shaped her musical style, blending traditional gospel roots with modern arrangements that carried energy and emotion. By the 1980s, she launched her solo career, and albums like Live at Salem Baptist Church and On Time, God established her as one of gospel music's leading voices. But behind the success stories of industry conflicts began to surface. Colleagues claimed Dottie was a fierce negotiator when it came to royalties, concert bookings, and radio airplay. Some accused her of using aggressive tactics to secure better chart positions and performance opportunities, while others admired her for standing up for gospel artists in an industry that often underpaid and undervalued them. Dottie herself rarely addressed these criticisms directly. Instead, she focused on producing music that uplifted audiences with hits like He's an On-Time God, becoming church favorites across the country. Her live performances were legendary, packed with energy, call and response singing, and an unmistakable joy that drew thousands to gospel concerts year after year. Throughout her career, Dottie earned numerous accolades, including Stellar Awards, Gospel Music Excellence Awards, and Grammy nominations. She also mentored younger gospel singers, encouraging them to blend faith with professionalism as they built their careers. While some peers described her as competitive and business-savvy, few questioned her dedication to ministry. Dottie often used her platform to support charitable causes, performing at benefits and church fundraisers to help communities in need. Decades after her debut, Dottie Peoples remains a respected figure in gospel music. A woman whose voice, passion, and determination broke barriers while keeping gospel traditions alive. Her story reflects the complexity of balancing ministry music and the realities of the entertainment business. Vanessa Bell Armstrong. Vanessa Bell Armstrong, born on October 2, 1953 in Detroit, Michigan, emerged in the 1980s as one of gospel music's most soulful and emotionally charged vocalists. Raised in the same city that produced Aretha Franklin, Vanessa grew up surrounded by gospel, R&B, and Motown influences that shaped her unique sound. Her debut album, Peace Be Still, 1983, became an instant hit with the title track showcasing her extraordinary vocal range and heartfelt delivery. Listeners were captivated by her ability to move seamlessly from soft emotional passages to soaring powerhouse notes that left audiences speechless. But away from the spotlight, Vanessa faced personal challenges that she kept private for many years. Reports later revealed struggles with health issues and financial setbacks that often threatened to derail her career. Fans who saw her commanding the stage with confidence were stunned to learn she was battling difficulties behind closed doors. Despite these obstacles, Vanessa continued releasing acclaimed albums like Chosen 1984 and Following Jesus 1986. In 1987, she crossed into mainstream attention when she recorded You Bring Out the Best in Me, a gospel song with strong R&B elements, earning her both praise and criticism for blurring genre lines. In the 1990s, Vanessa took another bold step by performing on Broadway in the musical Don't Get God Started, and later contributed to the soundtrack of The Women of Brewster Place. These projects introduced her to audiences beyond the gospel world, while proving her versatility as an artist. Throughout her career, she earned Stellar Awards Grammy nominations and the respect of peers who admired her vocal talent and perseverance. Even as health issues occasionally forced her to step back from performing, Vanessa's music remained a source of inspiration for those facing their own trials. Vanessa Bell Armstrong's story is one of triumph amid adversity, a reminder that behind every powerful performance lies a human being navigating faith, hardship, and resilience. Her voice, filled with both strength and vulnerability, continues to touch hearts across generations. Thomas A. Dorsey. Thomas Andrew Dorsey, born on July 1, 1899 in Villa Rica, Georgia, is remembered today as the father of gospel music. Yet his journey to that title was anything but simple. Raised in a Baptist household, young Thomas grew up surrounded by church hymns, but his first love was the blues. As a teenager, he moved to Atlanta and later to Chicago, drawn to the thriving music scene of the early 20th century. In Chicago, Dorsey learned piano and began performing under the name Georgia Tom, writing and arranging blues songs that blended jazz rhythms with heartfelt lyrics. He worked with Ma Rainey, the mother of the blues, and became known for his compositions like It's Tight Like That, a hit that sold millions of copies in the late 1920s. At the time, Thomas Dorsey was far more connected to speakeasies than sanctuaries. But in 1928, everything changed. Dorsey attended a church service where he experienced a profound spiritual awakening. Slowly, he began shifting his musical focus from blues to sacred music, using the rhythms and melodies of jazz and blues to create a new style gospel music. When he released If You See My Savior in 1928, many church leaders criticized him, saying the music was too worldly. Yet congregations loved it, and soon Dorsey's compositions began spreading across the country. Dorsey's personal life, however, was marked by tragedy. In 1932, his wife Nettie died in childbirth, and the baby passed away soon after. Grief-stricken, he wrote Precious Lord, Take My Hand, a song that would become one of the most famous gospel hymns of all time. It was later sung at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral, linking Dorsey's pain-born lyrics to a pivotal moment in history. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Dorsey composed over 1,000 songs and trained countless gospel musicians. He also co-founded the National Convention of Gospel Choirs and Choruses in 1933, creating a platform for young artists to learn and perform. His collaborations with singers like Mahalia Jackson helped launch gospel music into mainstream recognition, blending spiritual depth with musical sophistication. Yet Dorsey never fully escaped criticism from traditionalists who felt gospel's emotional blues-influenced style was too radical for church services. He often defended his work by pointing out that the Psalms themselves were full of raw emotion, and that sacred music needed to speak to people's hearts, not just their theology. By the time of his death on January 23, 1993, Thomas A. Dorsey had transformed American church music forever. From Take My Hand, Precious Lord to Peace in the Valley, his songs became staples across denominations, languages, and cultures. His life story reminds us that innovation often begins where personal pain, cultural change, and spiritual devotion intersect. As we've uncovered the hidden stories behind gospel's greatest legends, one question remains. Should their personal struggles and private choices shape how we remember their music? Some argue that faith, talent, and human imperfection have always been intertwined, while others believe personal controversies complicate the legacy of sacred art. What do you think? Do these revelations change how you hear their songs, or do they make the music even more powerful? Share your thoughts below, because at Legends of Black Excellence, the conversation about history, humanity, and artistry is only just beginning.